Mr. Chairman.
Senator Welch first.
Requested documents that they just arrived, and we're in the process of reviewing them, so I intend to vote yes, but reserve my right on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Cotton.
I'd like to say a few words about the nomination of Chris Fonzone to lead the Office of Legal Counsel. I don't believe that Mr. Fonzone should be confirmed to this very important and sensitive job. It's often described as the Department of Justice's law firm, and opinions issued by the Office of Legal Counsel are binding authority on the executive branch unless we pass a law or court rules to the contrary. It's not an insignificant job. It requires a very, very important sense of judgment and discernment. Unfortunately, I believe Mr. Fonzone has not shown that sense of judgment and discernment in the past. He worked in Barack Obama's National Security Council. He was well aware of the threat China posed to this nation, given his work on the NSC. But at the end of the Obama administration, he went into private practice, and in private practice, he willingly agreed to do work for Chinese communist-controlled entities like Huawei. In his nomination hearing for his current role as General Counsel of the DNI, I asked Mr. Fonzone about that representation and whether he could have turned it down within his firm. He said he didn't know. I suppose he never sought to find out. I guess he wasn't interested in knowing whether it was suitable in fancy law firms to decline work for Chinese communist-controlled entities. I suspect very much that it was just fine to turn down work for big tobacco companies or oil companies or other companies that are disfavored by the Democratic Party. But radio silence for Chinese communist-controlled or affiliated companies. Now, despite his work for Huawei, he's been in a very sensitive role at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and President Biden wants to put him in charge of legal rulings that could affect the entire executive branch. I think we should all ask ourselves a question, not just about Mr. Fonzone and about this role. Should we confirm people who are well aware of the threat that Communist China poses to this country, who have left government, left sensitive national security or foreign policy related positions in the government, and then gone into the private sector where they have worked with Chinese communist-owned, controlled, directed, affiliated entities? If they do, should they be invited back into the United States government, into positions requiring sensitive judgment and trust? I have nothing against Mr. Fonzone personally, and he's far from the only person who has worked in government, left and done work in private practice for Chinese communist-owned, controlled, directed, affiliated entities. But I do think it's a practice that we ought to frown upon, to discourage, and to encourage people who are in law firms or investment banks or consulting firms or multinational corporations to think twice about willingly working for Chinese communist-controlled, owned, directed, affiliated entities. I think it would be a good thing if fewer people did that, and especially if they came back into the government. That's why I opposed his nomination to his current role, and that's why I will oppose his nomination to this role as well.